Thank you and good afternoon. In January 2007, the Eau Claire community was facing over $400 million in future community facilities needs for schools, downtown revitalization, performing arts centers, libraries, county courthouse and jail, sewer plant, and parks. As city manager, I asked the county administrator and the school superintendent if they were interested in getting together and trying to find a better way to address these issues. They were, and we did, and 6 months later, we launched a citizen-led visioning process that led ultimately to the Vision Eau Claire public engagement model. We initiated the visioning process because we saw that local decision-making was fragmented, that local governing bodies, such as the city council, sometimes struggled to find the political will to act, and that often critical community issues were sidestepped or avoided. And when citizens and officials did come together to work on community work groups, they struggled with how to work together effectively. Our original goal was to reduce community fragmentation and set some priorities for future public facilities. Our hope was to increase citizen engagement and to reverse the sense of disconnectedness that we often heard voiced by individual citizens. Similar to other communities, Eau Claire struggles with how to tackle the persistent wicked problems that often plague local governments, wicked problems being those complex, interdependent issues that defy a clear problem definition, involve conflicting perspectives of diverse stakeholders, and are rarely solved, only made better or worse. Over the past 8 years, Clear Vision has developed a public engagement and problem-solving approach that has worked in addressing some of Eau Claire's wicked problems, including the community facilities needs that really started the journey. Clear Vision has worked because it builds the practical skills of people to act, to do things, and build things of public value. Clear Vision emphasizes 3 core elements. First, training everyday people to use relational problem-solving skills centered on self-interest, shared purpose, public relationships, one-on-one interviews, power mapping, and public evaluation. Second, convening and empowering small group civic action teams to move from talk to action on issues selected by the participants. And third, creating joint public leadership opportunities for connecting everyday people with their broad community knowledge with the technical and political expertise of professional staff and elected officials. The Clear Vision process is simple but not easy. It's straightforward but messy, but it's powerful enough to bring about positive community change that may not happen in any other way.
Clear Vision is a process that has been embraced by our local government through the acceptance of public input through this process. It has brought forth and addressed issues that might not have been on our local government radar. The result was that Clear Vision and the hundreds of participants over the years did develop a public engagement process that led to community input and action in areas such as environmental sustainability, homelessness, jobs for the underemployed, regional transit, the arts, and education. More specifically, the process garnered the opening of a homeless shelter, the distribution of 5,000 plus books to first and second grade students, every first and second grade student in Eau Claire, and the approval of a multi-million-dollar performing arts center that required a public referendum that had a yes vote for the city and a no vote for the county. Clear Vision has also addressed multiple issues in food security, bike and pedestrian transit, and community gardens. And it led to Eau Claire's selection as an All-America City in 2014. In conclusion, the Clear Vision Eau Claire model, focusing on small work groups implementing such innovative concepts as power mapping, one-on-one interviews, and value house meetings, does not require large startup costs or an annual operating budget. So it can be transferred and replicated in any community, especially those that don't have the financial resources. The Clear Vision process reaches beyond any one event or a collection of events. Clear Vision is engaging the community for the common good. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. You have any question? Yes, Pete.
You had mentioned, Vicki, that there were ideas or proposals that were made through Clear Vision that the council might not have otherwise considered. Could you tell me a little bit about
Well, the Performing Arts Center, of course, they had considered as an arena many, many years ago. But the homeless shelter, that was not something that the county or the city would have addressed. That was something that citizens came together and said, we have multiple homeless centers in the community, but we don't have anything for single women and single men. And that was something that was addressed that the county would not have taken care of.
Okay.
So can you describe how it works? So a little more specifically.
It works in a variety of ways.
Okay,
So,
that
for
would be great.
example, we have done events, we've held empowerment summits where it was open to the public. We would try to recruit particular members of the community, low income, single moms, so forth, but it'd be open to the public. We'd go through a series of 4 to 6 public meetings where the group was involved in identifying a range of issues, talk about those issues, have the participants self-organize.
Like 20 people?
Well, 100 people, for example, and then they would select those issues and organize around the ones they were interested in. Then with those small groups formed, we would do the training. This is how you do one-to-one meetings. This is how you do power mapping. And then work with those groups on the issue that they've selected to power map that on the wall. If they were going to take action,
And what is a power map?
power map is simply a graphic diagram in a piece of flip chart paper. In the circle, you write the issue. Who should we talk to if we wanted to build a homeless shelter? And then you identify the organizations or the individuals or the groups that may have some say on that. And then the individuals in your work group will do one-to-one meetings with those different organizations to get some sense of what may be possible.
Power maps are my favorite part of this process, power mapping, because it gets you to think beyond the normal people that would come to a room. So if you think about a homeless shelter, you might just bring in the people who have agencies that might help that. But you go beyond that and you say, well, who else has an interest in this? Maybe our food pantries, maybe the people who are homeless has an interest. We need to reach out to them and bring them to the table as well. And we've done that. Especially we had an issue called treatment instead of incarceration. And by power mapping that, we said, well, the people that should be here are the people who are most recently incarcerated. And what it came down to is it wasn't the treatment, it was access to information that they needed that took us down a totally different path. So it's very powerful.
That's really, so you got to talk to the people who had been incarcerated and ask them what they needed, which helped you analyze what to be done next.
Exactly. I wasn't involved in that group because it's not part of what we do. We just help facilitate, mentor, coach, teach, and then allow the groups that are interested in that topic to take it from there. But yeah, we invited people to the table, and they're like, I've never been invited to sit across somebody in a suit
They
before.
participated in the group,
Yep.
in the group work.
Oh, that's very smart. Yes, Ed?
One of our criteria is transferability. It would seem that this process is easily transferable to other communities. Have you done that? If not, why not?
Well, it has been transferred in some ways. And basically, to transfer it is probably 4 to 6 hours of training. We've developed toolkits that we use with our communities. Frankly, the issue that we've had up to this point is just looking at how to address the issues in the Eau Claire community. So we haven't really looked at the ability to scale that up or to transfer that to other communities. I will say, though, that I have had meetings and done workshops with nonprofit organizations with a few other cities about particular issues that they have and incorporated those concepts into it.
We talked about it earlier with another finalist, and you mentioned it in your presentation as well, sustainability. You're obviously doing good work. How do you make sure 3, 4, 5 years from now that you've got the infrastructure in place to continue this effort?
Well, I think there, in terms of the sustainability, there are 2 issues. Simply, the process that Clear Vision went through as an initial visioning project, and we went through an ad hoc interim process, ultimately incorporating it as a 501c3. So as an organization, we've established a permanent organization, have in fact gone through successive leadership changes where we're continually bringing in different members of the community that weren't part of the process 8 or 9 years ago, and we build in opportunities for them to learn our process. So that's how the organization has sustained itself. I think the other issue is in terms of its transferability to other communities. It depends on what that community is looking for. So this is a concept that could apply to a particular neighborhood. It could be applied to a particular nonprofit organization, to a particular issue. I think if other communities were interested in embedding that process, into their communities, that is something they would have to look at, whether it's built in through the local government, whether it's built into a consortium of community agencies.
Can I just add, I also think that some of the sustainability is when projects that we've been involved in start getting some notoriety and getting some recognition. We've actually had people come to us to want to be on our board. So it's really taken exactly what we wanted the community engagement to do, is engage people in wanting to be involved.
Are there characteristics of projects which make them well-suited for this process, or characteristics of a project that makes them ill-suited? It's really doesn't work for a particular type of project.
I would, from my perspective, I think it applies, I won't say easy, but it fits mostly those problems that cut across boundaries and jurisdictions. It really does apply best to the wicked problems. I mean, if it was simply replacing the fire hydrant, you don't really need an advisory committee, a group of citizens to do that. So it really fits best to those problems that there's not a clear technical solution. You're trying to bring in a lot of people and sort out what they can do.
One of the things that you said was jobs, right? So I think that's an issue that everybody faces, and I was wondering, how did that work out?
Well, one thing that happened with that is we had a group that initially started out to talk about the poverty level in our community. And as we brought our power map together and got people together, it boiled down to that it was more about underemployment of jobs. And then power mapped again to say, well, what's really the root cause and where's that at? And it came down to accessibility of how to get a resume started and where do they find that. And it turned out to be a resource map that was put together, a resource guide, and then the guide was put on the city buses because that's where the people who didn't have the jobs would be. So it really narrowed it down to find the root cause to help with that cause.
That sounds very good. Because you don't know what the answer is going to be till you start the dialogue, it
You know,
sounds
and
like.
I think that's exactly what the whole Clear Vision process is about. It's not about coming together with a preconceived solution. It's coming together with an issue that is in the back of somebody's mind that's just bothering them, and what can we do about it as citizens? Of course, our government is important, and we need them, and we need to collaborate with them on certain things, but what can we as citizens do to make positive changes?
And I suppose that one of the other questions, and we've heard from others, groups of interest in citizen engagement, do people, I don't know if you do a poll about this, do people feel better now that they have been engaged or not?
Well,
what,
so
I
it's
don't even know it if
anecdotal
you-
information.
What?
I mean, it's anecdotal information.
Yes.
So, we don't
Right.
have a rigorous evaluation
Right.
system. But time and again, what we've seen from the people is and you can tell by the room. When you start these meetings and
Right.
people start to talk and they don't want to be quiet.
Yeah.
And there's a buzz.
Right.
That they didn't have when they came in. So that, across the board, different ages, different functions, there's kind of an energy level because they feel like I can do something.
Right.
This is how I start the conversation.
And we end every meeting as part of our processes with a public evaluation. So we pose a question depending on how the conversation went. It might be such that, so did we accomplish what we started out to do? And how do you feel about that? And we go around the room and every single person in the room gets a voice. And so we end it that way. And it gives us not only the opportunity for everyone to speak, but it gives us the opportunity to say, what do we do different next time based on what the responses were?
That sounds very exciting. Do you have
How do you balance the, getting the right people at the table to help create a clearer vision on what needs to be done versus what you've heard with the other groups? Anybody can come to the table and be in the kitchen, to use the analogy. How do you balance that?
Right, well, we start with, whoever shows up, that's the group we begin with and on that issue. But through the power mapping, one of the things that group will need to do is look at the community or look at the issue and see who else do they either
Okay, so
need.
it's not, right, it's additive, not
Oh, yeah,
either or.
absolutely,
yeah.
right, yeah, it changes
It's
as it
doing the
goes
power
along.
mapping, and then when you power map, you may power map an organization, but then we push them a little further, say then who then at that organization do we need to talk to? And then you do your one-on-one with that person to find out what their interest level is. They may not be interested, and so at that point, there's no sense bringing them to the table.
Gotcha.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.